All right, my friends, we are live. Welcome back to another episode of The Deep End. I'm actually not sure what episode this is, but I do know for sure that both Ari and myself are stoked to be back with you guys for another live stream. Ari, my man, how you doing over there?
Ron, I'm doing great as always. It's already been an amazing weekend.
Oh,
What a
good.
week, man! The portfolio is just under $400,000, and so I think in about a week or two we should cross that line, especially if the market goes up, which
Yeah.
is incredibly exciting. I do have to. I don't know if she's watching right now. I do got to give a shout out to somebody though who might be watching. Her name's Lee. I just met her, but she told me that she was invested in crypto, and so I wanted to talk about that
Okay.
a little bit later on. We'll get into it, but Ryan, before we get into that, how are we doing? What's going on your side?
Man, things are going really good. I went on a huge shopping spree this week. I put out a video today, this morning, talking about it. But man, this week, and actually, let me zoom out a little bit longer than just this week. Over the last, I would say, like 3 weeks or so since I started my Watsco position, kind of mid towards the end of April, I've invested about $8,000 into my portfolio, which I think is like the largest contribution like in a short amount of time that I've ever made since I started investing. But I went on a huge shopping spree this week, picked up some more Watsco, picked up some Vichy properties, definitely picked up some Zoetis, which saw a pretty notable drop. And man, I think in our last conversation, I said I'm going for that $4,000 annual dividend income goal. I'm now at 3,890, so I'm only $110 away from there. And just yesterday, after the market closed, I transferred a couple thousand more into my brokerage account that I'll deploy this upcoming week. So I'm going to be easily less than $100 away from hitting that goal, which I was planning to get to by the end of the year. But I'll should easily be able to do it this month if I just keep buying like I have been. So with all of that said, things in the portfolio are good. We're making some great strides, and yeah, pretty content with where things are headed.
I gotta be the first one to say it. I think you should up the ante on your goal because I think you're gonna crush 4,000. And so you know me. I mean, I'm pretty crazy, but I should say we should go for like 5K. What do you feel?
Yeah,
Is that
no, well, by
too
the end of
ambitious?
the year, I'm not going to do it just because I don't have that cash. Like that would probably require me to, like, I'd probably have to contribute like 30 plus $1,000 by the end of the year.
Oh,
And I
you're
just,
talking at the end of this year, like
yeah,
all the
I'm
end
talking
of this
about,
year. I got you,
I'm
got you.
talking. So, yeah, last week I said by January 1st, I want to be at 4,000, and I'll be there. I could be there by the end of this next week, depending on what I buy. I'll absolutely 100% be there by the end of the year. But it's funny, I've been approaching this short term goal so fast that it's had me thinking a bit more about kind of the medium long term goal. Well, just let's just say medium term goal because long term goal is obviously like ultimate goal is financial freedom. But I think the next like big milestone dividend income goal in the portfolio is $4,800 of projected income, which obviously breaks down to an average of $400 per month. And I was crunching the numbers a couple days ago, and I think it will take me, like, if I invest just at around my current portfolio yield, that might take me like $32,000 to get there. That could happen if I really go, how do I say this? If I really go heavy next year, I could definitely get there by the end of next year. And I think that's going to be my goal. It's too soon to say like what my goal is for 2026, but as we kind of inch towards the end of the year, that's one that I definitely have my sight set on for 2026. But yeah, short term, by the end of this one, let's just get through this year first. And by the end of this one, I'll easily be at over 4,000. So it's cool, man. It's cool. Cause my goal, sorry to ramble on, but my goal by the end of the year initially, like coming into 2025 was $3,600 of projected income. And we've blown past that. And so let's see what happens, man. I'm just really trying to go heavy right now, really trying to push it. So
Matt, let me loop back to what I opened with. Just meeting someone today and having the opportunity to talk with her, and she's invested into crypto. Here's my question for you. First of all, I'm curious. I don't think we have ever really talked about crypto.
I don't
So
think we have either.
I almost think we have the same viewpoint on it, but it might be worth a short discussion. My big
Yeah.
question is, what are your thoughts on people jumping into crypto before the stock market, like before they get into equities and start investing in the stocks? Do you think this is just like jumping on a kind of the get rich quick scheme type of train, or like, what are your thoughts there?
I do. I think crypto is such a confusing space. Like it, at least from what I can tell, like few people actually know what it is. They just know Bitcoin's a cool thing that goes up. They know Ethereum's a cool thing that goes up. Whether or not there's any utility there or any like long-term viability of these things, I think that's still TBD. I think it's a hyped up space. And so I think that that definitely draws people in. One recent example of that actually lately, it's funny that we're talking about this. So as you know, my friend Bob was
I
here.
knew it was going to be him.
Him and his
I knew it.
him and his family were visiting us here in Las Vegas earlier this week, and we were talking just about investing and stuff like that. And he was telling me that his coworkers, not just one coworker, and he works in construction, like a very, very blue collar job. Multiple coworkers of his are all in on not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, not even stocks, but they're all in on XRP, which I don't even know. I've heard of
I couldn't tell
XRP,
you.
but I don't know what separates XRP from Bitcoin, from Ethereum, from whatever. The Web3 space is so confusing, and I think it's just I don't know. I'm not even going to try and get into it because I don't fully understand it. But anyway, these very blue collar workers are going all in on this XRP thing, and it could just as well be like a poop coin. Basically, what they're looking for is, and not saying that XRP is, but they're basically just looking for this thing that's going up and going to the moon and following that narrative. And I think that's happening a lot in the crypto space. And that's not to say that it's not going to. I think one of the big questions about crypto is like, is it going to specifically Bitcoin is it going to replace the dollar someday? Is it going to be like an actual currency akin to something like a gold? And once again, I think it's still TBD. I think that's a big part of the narrative, but it's too soon to tell. But with all of that said, to answer your question, yeah, I do get a bit concerned seeing people really rushing into that before kind of taking a more responsible route. It's kind of like having your dessert before you have your vegetables. I think they're going straight for the dessert
Ooh.
without going for the broccoli and green beans. And I don't like green beans, but I do like broccoli, and I do think it's you should
And
probably.
sometimes a little bit of dessert before the dinner is good.
Yeah, a little bit's okay. A little appetizer's okay, but you shouldn't go all in on dessert before dinner, because then you're not gonna have the dinner. You're not gonna have the sustenance that you really need. You gotta to use another phrase, I guess. You gotta get your work in before you play. And so I would prefer to see these people who probably are not like investing savants by any means. I'd prefer to see them just cover their bases with, like, even just the S&P or VTI or some sort of total market fund, other total market fund, versus before they go heavy into crypto, or anything else that's going to be more speculative in nature. That's kind of my take. What do you
I,
think?
I totally hear you. I agree with you. I'm aligned with you 100%. I think that, at the end of the day, there's always so many new financial products that are coming out, whether, it's in the equity space or even crypto, right? I don't even know this new coin, I guess you just mentioned, XRP. Not familiar with it, but you could have thrown out any three letters and I would have been like, yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah.
So I think with that being said, I definitely feel a lot of people, okay, let's just make this clear. A lot of people want to get rich and they want to get rich yesterday. And so any opportunity to do just that, I mean, it's easy to fall prey to things like this. And I do agree with you. On the other end, though, I think it's always interesting because I'll give two examples. My ex actually had a friend who I think she gave, like, she was from the UK. She gave like maybe £5,000 or something, whatever it was, to a friend of hers who said that he was going to invest it on her behalf. And I think he pooled a lot of money. I think she got scammed by her friend. That was always a topic for conversation. But I think he scammed her and other people because he was like, once it's profitable, I'll give you your money back and then some. She never saw the money again because he said the coin was never profitable. but I don't even know, but he was touting that he was, that's a whole nother story. So that, I think that was like a scam. But I have another friend who she ended up, actually her brother ended up investing into like a plethora of coins way back when. And he is in his early 20s, Ryan. Just millions. I mean, he literally invested in these things. I'm talking like when they first came out, which is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
crazy. And he had no idea what he was doing. Now, after it's profitable, he started to take a look around, and now he's very knowledgeable in the space. But it's just interesting, so it's hard to say. I think someone there in the comments had shared you could put about 5% into your portfolio if you wanted to. And I also agree with that logic. I think if it's of interest to you and you have interest in investing in cryptocurrencies, you can definitely get invested in that space, maybe, even less than that. I think the best thing that you could do to set yourself up for success is what you already shared, build that foundation, whether it's the S&P 500 or another, broad market fund, just to cover those bases and not, I want to say, gamble every day of your life on whether or not, people are feeling emotionally good about crypto or not. And at
Mhm.
least, you're building something over time before taking a risk. But I do have to say this, this girl who I was talking to, a brilliant, very smart individual. And so it piqued my interest because I'm like, you know, and especially with, whether it was my ex's story or my other friend, like there are crypto stories out there where people just threw money in and really did get lucky. And
Yeah.
I almost think, is it worth having that 2% position? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if it's something small, yeah, I think that's much more reasonable than making it your entire investment strategy. And I would like to separate the idea that actually this is tough. Actually, this is a tough thing to try and separate. I was gonna say I think I'd like to try and separate the idea that making money on something makes it a good investment. Actually, no, I actually think it's pretty easy to separate those things. Case in point, we could look at the tulip mania way back in the day. People were speculating on flowers, and there's no denying that so many people made money on those things. But in hindsight, isn't it a silly thing to think that people actually staked money on flowers like that? I can't help but think that even though people still made money on it, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a good investment. The outcome worked out pretty good, but I just don't, I think it's no better an investment than putting your money on black at the roulette table. It could go up, it could go down in the same way that tulips could or Bitcoin could, or any other crypto or asset for that matter, I suppose. And I think the thing that separates crypto from something like stocks, at least for me, is it's so much harder for me to wrap my head around crypto and what it is and what the value from it is compared to something like a stock, which obviously is representative of a living, breathing business that sells a product or service that generates profits, that generates free cash flow from that. To me, it's so much more tangible and straightforward to put money and consider that like an actual viable investment than a lot of these crypto things that we see. And that's not to say, once again, that you can't make money on them. Like you said, someone who's young who's made millions on them. I actually know a couple of people too that have done very stinking well um, on these crypto things. But it's just, I guess, at the end of the day, it's just different. And if you want to try your hand at it, yeah, I guess go for it, I suppose. But I think probably the problem is that a lot of people get into them without fully realizing or even having a slight idea of what these things are or what they could be and why they could be that someday. It just seems like you're gambling on it to go up because it's the hot thing for the moment.
Right on. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, it's acceptable to invest into anything. Just do your due diligence on whatever it is. And as long as your due diligence has been done, I mean, I think, if you want to put money, someone, there was a little conversation in the chat somewhere up there,
Right here.
whether you could put 5%, yeah, or why not 5, why not 10, right? Here we go, Fast Eddie. And then the truth is, you can put as much as you want, right? If you have a high conviction on Bitcoin, yeah, maybe 25, or maybe go all in, as some of Ryan's friends have done, or some people in my network have done. I certainly am taking that approach more and more as in terms of stocks in my portfolio. And I gotta say, I've been running a lot of numbers this past week, and I am jazzed up. And so let me just tell you this, man. I spent, I think, Friday morning for an hour just running a bunch of numbers because I want 2026 to be out of this freaking world. I want the year to be just something that is like going to get me to the next level. And so what is it going to take? What strategy do I have to deploy? And, I've seen such an amazing 2025. And I got to be honest, I think I could have revved up the engine a little bit more for myself. I think I could have been over $400,000 by now. And I think if I were investing as I've been investing this past year, I could have been over the $500,000. But I don't want to look back. I just want to take, everything I was saying to myself and say like, hey, the time is now to do everything that you could have been doing. And so anyways, running these numbers, this is crazy. Are you ready for this, Ryan? I ran the numbers.
Hold on.
Okay,
I'm ready. I'm good. I'm ready. I just needed to take a beat to prep
I
myself.
need some more energy to even share this, man. So if I take my capital, my income right now, and invest my income monthly, every dime that's coming in from just one of my income streams into the market and into either the S&P 500 on a conservative level or my tech-oriented fund, in 3 years, I will cross the 7-figure club milestone.
So that's just
Assuming, wait, let me also say the assuming part. Okay. That's, I feel like, assuming all goes well and we don't get some crazy depression or recessions along the way. And like we're experiencing what we're experiencing the last 2 years or so. That's pretty crazy.
So the contributions, is that just, I might've missed this. Is that just for this upcoming year? Or is that over the next 3 years throughout?
Over the next 3 years. And here's the crazy part about that. Now there's also some caveats because obviously everyone knows I love to travel. So I'm not going to give up what I find to be the most enriching part of my life. But it's just interesting, I think, to run those numbers and know that if I did do that, I can be there in 3 years.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, man. It'd be so nice to be in that position where you have no bills, no expenses. You can just take all of your income, obviously taxes, but like after tax, and just put that all into the portfolio. That would be awesome. But I do want to say, like, going back to what you were saying just a moment ago about, I could have been at 400,000 or so already if I didn't feel like I did as much as I could have, blah, blah, blah. That's probably true because obviously you just got back from a month-long trip, spending money doing that. But at the same time, as we've talked about before, it's like, man, you've got to have that balance. You've worked hard to even get your portfolio to the point where it's at now. And you have to strike that balance between planning for your future, but also living for today. And I think more than hitting the $400,000 ASAP, which you'll get to probably in the coming days. I think you've struck that balance pretty well this year. Like you've made great progress in your portfolio and you still have had, you've still been able to live your rich life outside of the portfolio as well. So I wouldn't get too down on yourself. I don't think you are, but in case you are even a little bit, I wouldn't. I'd stop right there.
No, I'm not down. Okay. I for like half a second, I beat myself up. But I think in beating yourself up for even just half a second, you do put yourself in a good position to get yourself going. And for I think those of us who are optimistic about the future and it can motivate ourselves to do that. Some people will beat themselves up and remain there. That's not healthy. But I do think, look, you are always going to be your harshest critic, right?
I don't know, man. We get some comments sometimes that are pretty gnarly, but
that is true. But you will always be the person waking up with yourself. Looking at yourself in the mirror. And what I was walking with someone earlier today, and we've both gone through just a heck of a year, man, and a heck of the last year and a half with a multitude of things. And I always just say this, and we concurred on this earlier: no one is coming to save you, right? That's the difference between the child and the adult, right? The adult understands very well, like no one's coming to save you. So it is up to you. And so I do think, as when people sometimes tell me like I'm very hard on myself, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am very hard on myself, because in being this hard on myself, it really does put at least me in the position to fire myself up, to say I will never be there again. And so I look at, some of the things, and I speak this harshly, I guess, about myself and my experiences, because I really passionately don't want other investors to fall trap to what I did, and kind of take it easy. I want to see everybody hit their financial goals. And if it's at the detriment of me making those mistakes, then that's exceptional.
Yeah, well, that's part of why we put ourselves out there like this, right? And share these experiences so people can hopefully learn from them.
100%. 100%. And I look, like I said, I'm not sitting here, hour in and hour out beating myself up. But like I said, it's awesome to know that just by way of investing, I could be there in 3. Now I'm going to stretch it to 5 years. That's about the mark. But there's also
Still
other
incredible.
factors in there, man. And someone asked there in the chat if I have investments outside the US. And in 2026, I will. I'm going to be partaking in a very interesting opportunity. And that's going to be outside the United States in a real estate deal. And so, I think it's just risk. I mean, I always say it: risk big, play like a billionaire, invest like a billionaire. And I think that's where that mindset more and more is coming in, at least on my side. And that's even why I say to you, man, when you're like, I want to hit this, I'm like, let's move it, dial it up. Let's do 5,000,
Yeah. So I will say, kind of on that note, and we have to get back to Lee. I don't think we finished the crypto stuff. I don't think you finished telling me about Lee yet. So I do want to get back to that. But kind of on the topic of the portfolio stuff, I know I've told you before and told all of you guys tuning in, which, by the way, I should have mentioned this 20 minutes ago. If you guys have any investing questions, anything you want us to cover, drop it here in the chat and we'll go through it once we finish. It really, what Ari and I are doing right now, we're catching up. We hopped on, we just hit record, so we're catching up on things. But yeah, we want to answer you.
The truth really be told is we were supposed to do this tomorrow.
Yeah, Saturday.
And then I got a message from Ryan saying, you want to do it tonight? And I got,
my bad.
No, not your. This is great, man. I was like, of course. There's always a time for the deep end.
Well, I will say now. I'll talk about it after the conversation. It's off camera. That's not important. But I was going to say so I've talked before about the fact that my wife and we've been saving up for a car. We're pretty soon we need to buy a new car, get a second car, because we've just been rocking with one. We've been sharing a car for the last 2.5 years, and it's been great, honestly.
The dividend Prius.
Yeah, the dividend Prius. So anyway, as I've talked about before, we've been, saving up to get a brand new car, and that's kind of been something we've been wanting to do soon. I've got the cash already set aside for it, ready to go. But now, as we've kind of, been experiencing this new parenting life and kind of getting settled in this new routine, I think and my wife's probably not going to go back to work until like April. So she's got a long time off maternity leave. And so with that said, I think it's kind of delaying the necessity to buy a car right away. And kind of the more I think about it, I was very, very gung-ho about not having a car payment. And I still like the idea of not, but I'm kind of starting to change my thought around that a little bit, because it's been really nice having all of this cash just sitting in the high yield savings account. And I'm kind of thinking it would be really nice to, if something were to happen in the market, if something were to really head south in the market, I could go on the shopping spree of a lifetime with all of this cash. And so I'm kind of thinking,
how much are you sitting on?
In my high yield savings account, I've got like 36,000. And so with the car thing, I really wanted to keep it under, if we were going to pay it off, just not have a car payment, just buy the car in cash, like somewhere under 30,000 was the budget. So either way, that's still going to give me some, leftover cash at the end of the day. But, thinking maybe we just put 5 or 10 down, that's still going to, and I'm adding to this high yield savings account every single month, probably multiple times per month. But I'm thinking, man, it would be so nice, because I feel like things are getting kind of shaky in the market. I think the fear and greed index has really swung back to the fear side lately. There's just a lot of things that kind of point to maybe something happening in the stock market, I don't know, in the next couple quarters. And no one really knows, obviously. But if that ends up being the case, man, like I said, I could go on the shopping spree of a lifetime. And I think from a long-term perspective, being able to hold on to this cash and deploy it when the time is right is, I think that would just be such a game changer for the portfolio. Not only would that immediately take the amount that I have invested in stocks from about 113 right now to about 150. Like, I'm obviously I wouldn't deploy it overnight, but like right like that. Um, so not only would it really result in a huge increase in the portfolio value, but hopefully I'll be buying stocks, at a deep discount. So that's going to just help things from a long-term perspective as well. And so I'm kind of thinking maybe we just change the car plan a little bit. Maybe we just do a car payment, something reasonable, and hold on to that cash and kind of keep it as dry powder for when things do eventually go south, whenever that may happen.
I like it, man. You could also think about going from the dividend Prius to the dividend Fiat or something, like just a
Yeah.
different, just a different
Dividend,
mode.
the dividend Ferrari.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's after a couple of years. I don't know if you want to drive a
Right.
Ferrari with the baby in the
No,
passenger.
definitely not. Definitely not.
My
She's
my
more
brother.
she's more of a Lambo baby, so we'll
Yeah, that makes yeah.
yeah.
My brother had a Porsche when he lived in Miami, and he, once he had his kid, I mean, they got rid of the Porsche. It just doesn't make sense to have some of these cars,
Yeah.
with a kid. So, but either way, look, man, I think first of all, tech is definitely stealing the headlines and driving a lot of these ebbs and flows in the market. So we have to take that in consideration. The indexes are so heavy on the Mag 7 really and tech that any little disturbance or disruption in technology news will really send us for quite a ride. That's what we saw this past week.
Yeah,
and
right.
and so I did a lot of buying this past week. I think I maybe tossed in over 10K into tech. And what did I do? I actually did sell out of, I guess this is some news to share, is I had some Amazon shares and I ended up selling out of my Amazon position in order just to put that money, reallocate it back into the tech-oriented ETF that I have for two reasons. I believe in Amazon. Amazon's a standout company. I'm long-term very bullish on an Amazon play, but when I have it benchmarked to the tech ETF that I have, it loses over time. So, I think that ought to be the way that everybody should be looking at their portfolios is, hey, and of course, future past performance is not indicative of future returns. That's for sure. But over the long span of time, you can never really beat a broader market index or a broader sector index. Especially, I think, when we're talking tech, and who knows, I was looking at some of these ETFs that are out there and what they're holding. Some of them, like Robinhood, I didn't know how well Robinhood was actually doing. It's not a holding of mine. I don't intend to hold it. But I did take a look at it because I was looking at a couple of ETFs and some of their top holdings. And I landed on one of these ETFs, and it was Robinhood in the top 10. And I looked and I go, geez, like Robinhood has soared, And so I also think it's interesting just to talk about the opportunities that are out there when we're so focused on our own positions, to always have an open ear, and try. Like, I would have never discovered how well Robinhood was doing if I didn't start peeking around, some other strategies. And they all do thanks to running my numbers and trying to re-strategize. But it just goes to show, like, you could very well be missing out on opportunities staying so focused on your own portfolio. It's not to say lose conviction on your own stocks, but it is to say have the open ear to do some investigating outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, with that said, I think it helps to establish some sort of criteria, at least of what you're looking for. And obviously it helps to know kind of which types of businesses you understand. Because I will say there are so many. Robinhood's a pretty straightforward company, I think. But there are definitely some examples of businesses out there that are doing really, really good that I just cannot understand what they do. Rocket Lab, that's probably a good example of one. I have no idea what this company does. That one's going to be way too complex and over my head for me. But man, that's been a winner for a lot of people. I think Palantir is probably the same way. If I'm being honest, I just don't quite get it. That's obviously been a really hot, hyped up stock, but definitely not in my circle of competence. And so I think that those two things can kind of help you keep an open mind, but also keep a focused open mind, if such a thing exists. Because I do think you need to have some focus and give yourself some sense of direction of what you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, if you have general interests in different areas, or even if you don't have an interest yet in some of these areas, I always think it is worth it. Again, I go back to Masters of the Market, and I take a look at just all of these, interviews that I've done, and it's probably why I've become just very, very open to looking everywhere and anywhere. I actually just had PPC Ian on.
I saw
And
that.
so this is going to be an awesome episode. And, Ian and I were talking about how, well, Ian had shared, we were at the Blossom tour, and Ian was like, wow, I really just have to credit you for keeping an open ear, and kind of being malleable, because, your strategy, this was both on and off air. But he goes, your strategy has proven itself by keeping open. And actually, Ian added 2 tech stocks to his portfolio. So I was like ecstatic to hear that, because I didn't expect it. That interview will drop, not tomorrow, but next Sunday, because tomorrow's interview is actually another good interview, and she's actually, I think, maybe still in the chat, but it's Joey's interview. Yeah, so she has a fire interview that we did as well, and an amazing chat, amazing story. And but look, it keeps me blown away. Like everybody I have on, it's just hard not to be blown away. And I think the most dull story, Ryan, is mine. I'm like, I hear everybody's stories. I'm like, these are amazing, and it's just, I'm so grateful to be able to be in the position that I'm in, to talk to so many people, because I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly inspired, and I'm constantly learning. And that, I think, is worth millions. Billions. I'm sorry.
There you go. Can we go back to Lee? What were you going to say about Lee in terms of crypto, or was it just like that opening conversation?
Yeah, no, it's just
that was
I was curious, because I was just speaking about it, and my thought immediately kind of went to, hey, like, should people be getting directly involved into crypto before they're really getting into the space of investing? Because crypto, I mean, look, the one thing I feel like that wasn't there, in the ecosystem, in the investment ecosystem when I started, was, first of all the cryptocurrencies. That wasn't a thing. It was more mutual fund based than ETFs, mutual funds, and so it was very limited. And so really, even Ian and I did talk about this as well, but because it was so limiting, and Ian had even more of limitations than me and you did, Ryan, right? Because naturally by age. But when you think about it, investing was much simpler then. And it was, I want to say, less emotional. But these days, you have everything under the sun and new products continuously coming out. And the whole name of the game, not that the name of the game has changed, it's always been, Wall Street has always operated with the MO of how do we get the retail investor to buy this product. But the marketing is so aggressive these days. And it's so in your face with fast media, even finfluencers. Not all of us, but I will out like probably 50% of us who are promoting garbage, and so none of this was around way back in the day, but now it is. And I think because of the finfluence, and because of Wall Street and all the aggressive advertising, and just everything around that, people are jumping in on highly volatile opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's alarming, but sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So it's like, I almost, I have mixed feelings, mixed thoughts on it.
I do too. I think it's happening for 2 reasons. Number one, I think part of the reason that's happening number one, that there's more products, investment products, crazy investment products than there used to be. But also number two, that more people are getting into them is number one, I think investing is becoming more part of the zeitgeist. It is something that people have done for a long period of time. It's not like a super foreign or new thing, but and we've talked about this before too. Investing is becoming kind of a cool thing to do. I actually think case in point, shout out Blossom, they were just featured in Forbes. There was a whole article about how like social trading, I think how they phrased it in the article, or social investing is becoming a new thing. So I think, and I've spoken about this before too, I'm seeing so many younger people getting into doing this. I'm seeing, especially on Blossom and in the comments on YouTube, actually, 14, 15, 16, 17. One of my subscribers sent me a video of their 8-year-old the other week. It was a super sweet video. Sent me a video of their 8-year-old talking about investing. They had, the S&P, they had SCHD. They emailed me this super cute video. So I think investing is becoming a cool thing to do. It's becoming more of a normal thing to do. So I think that's part of it. But even so, because there are still so many new entrants, this is still, it can be kind of a complicated thing, and that's partly by design. So I think these people don't really know where to start. I think that's always going to be the case with any new thing that you get into. You don't always know where to start. And so I think that it's easier to sell these new entrants on these super speculative, risky things that sound good, but turn out not to be. But also, I think on the other side of that, things have been really, really good. The second reason these types of products are becoming more prominent is because things have been really, really good in the market for at least three straight years now. It's been pretty much nothing but up and up and up since 2022, and excluding 2022, like the last 4 years, even 2021 was super good. Parts of 2020 were really good as well too. So all of that's to say, things in the market have generally been very good for a pretty long time. And when that happens, it's easy to forget that things can go down in a meaningful way. It's easy to forget that speculating on random poop coins or very unprofitable companies, it's easy to forget that doesn't always work out. And so when that happens, you see people make more questionable decisions, less rational decisions, I will say, than if the market had more ebbs and flows than it has over these last few years. I think there's a lot of, with all of that's to say, I think there's a lot of recency bias and a bit of overconfidence in a lot of investors' decision making. And because investing is so social, because it is out there on social media, people see other people doing these things and think that it's okay. And I think that also creates a sense of overconfidence as well.
I totally agree. And you know what? One of these comments here by I hope I'm going to just butcher this name, Apezu.
Right here.
Yep. I wanted to pull that up real quick because it actually goes in tandem with what we're talking about. We had a couple great comments that just came in. And Fast Eddie, I got to say, Joey's channel is amazing. Great decision. And anybody and everybody who's out there, I plug into great creators and great, I want to say influencers, because the stories are impactful and it's just inspiring. But you also get to watch everybody's process as they go through things, including Ryan and myself and plenty of others who are out there creating financial content. You just get to learn a lot. But let's get back to this comment here, because I think it runs in tandem with what you're saying, man. And if you start projecting, well into the future, and one of the things, I mean, that's a key driver for me is being able to run the numbers. One thing that's hard to do with cryptocurrency, because there's no value really behind it other than the emotions that run high or low in the market, is be able to actually forecast. And that's really, I mean, like you could be like, yes, someday it's going to take off, hopefully, fingers crossed. And, hopefully one day I'll be a millionaire from crypto. But with companies, it's just an entirely different game. There's past performance, again, never indicative of future results, but you have at least something to work with.
Right.
And that for me is a big motivator, because I can start to then make my projections and put a plan together, a game time plan together. So I know I can hit some of these goals. And speaking about this one, my biggest goal is, whether or not I become some, okay, so right now with forecasting, definitely by retirement, 11 million, which is great. But whether or not I hit anything past that doesn't matter. And even the, the 11 million, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's not for me. And the reason actually why I am so aggressive in my investment strategy now, and why I want to get to that $1 million mark now, do 10% of $1 million, right? You're making now someone's salary, per year. And then you continue to compound that, and you can get, obviously, to live more of your rich life. But at the end of this deal, I always think about this question. Who's it for? It's for my kids. It's hopefully I can raise my kids, my future kids, well enough that they will want to also hand it down, because it wasn't done for me. It wasn't given to me. And I think everybody should have the obligation to try to give it, hand it down to the next generation. That's my own personal 2 cents on it. And so I consider, just to answer this question, my portfolio is solely dedicated towards generational wealth. And I spoke to my brother very recently, like a couple of days, about this, because we were having this conversation of like, our father wasn't, he did very well, but he was not, he invested in Johnson & Johnson stock because he worked at Johnson & Johnson. So by the time he retired, he had a nice, nest egg of J&J. And that's really when he started to get more into the stock market in of itself and investing. But, he didn't, we will all get, there's 4 of us. We will all get a little something, from my father, but it's nothing substantial at all. And, when I talk to him about it, I'm like, why didn't we ever strive for this generational wealth deal? And he was like, I work so hard. And I get that, you work so hard, you want to enjoy it. But I think there's another massive piece to this whole deal of life, which is, it comes back to this book by Simon Sinek, The Infinite Games. Are you living for you, or are you living for others? And I personally think if you are living for others, you are going to be immensely more wealthy. Whether or not the numbers are in your account, I'm talking about the real wealth of life, which is in your heart. You will be immensely more wealthy throughout your years, regardless of your monetary number, living for others. Just the idea, just my thinking, saying, you know what, I want to bust my butt so my future wife and my future kids can have the best freaking life, feels immensely more like a million X better than saying, I want to work my tail off so I can be rich.
So I can buy a Breitling top time.
Yeah, like that guy who was on last time talking about buying a watch.
What a schmuck.
What a schmuck. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like that to me is everything. And so I don't know. And I don't know. I'm not here to hate on anybody who doesn't have that in mind. There's a lot of people who, I'm blanking on the name of the strategy, but you're basically playing until zero, right?
Die with zero.
Yeah, die with zero. So that is out there, and amazing if that's what you choose to do. I personally have felt from living a life that was, so self-centered, because of a traumatic childhood that made me so fixated on chasing money, saving money, investing. It's all for me, because I came from that traumatic traumatic upbringing that did damage to me, because it set me up for this kind of, it was a selfish life, man. At the end, that's what it was. And I had to do a lot of work around that to escape that and realize that it's not about this selfish mentality. It's about the abundance mentality. And abundance means, Ryan, you can be a billionaire and I can be a billionaire too. We can both be billionaires, right? And I think people who are, I don't know, maybe I'll go deep into this, but that's just, I think everybody should be trying to hand it down to the next generation.
Yeah, I agree. Truth be told, I've never really understood I shouldn't say understood. I've never really liked the idea of die with zero. I think that probably works if you don't have a family, or if you don't have, people that you can pass that on to. But even if you didn't, there's always causes that you could donate to, other things that are near and dear to your heart that I think it would make sense to leave something behind. So I've never the idea of die with zero has never fully resonated with me. And I will say, kind of like you were saying, after my family, the older generation is gone, and me and my siblings are left. I don't want to say we'll have like a crazy, crazy, crazy amount of money to that will be left to us, but it will be worthwhile. I do know that. And one of my goals, one of my motivations for even getting into this investing stuff in the first place is knowing that I want to be a good steward of that, because the people who came before me worked so hard to build up, and it's not even just one generation, it's probably two or three generations that have been building that wealth that's been in the family. And so if and when it becomes my turn to take that on, I want to know how to handle that. I want to be a good steward of that so I can continue that and build it even larger. So hopefully the next generation that comes after me can live a life that's a bit easier than even mine. And I have a very easy life, I will say. Like I love my life. It's been great. Work very hard and do well for myself, but um I, it's I want to have something for the next generation too. And part of my goal now as a parent is to teach my kid, or maybe eventually kids, we'll see, to also be a good steward of it too, so they can continue that and not squander it. And so I think generational wealth is an important thing. There was another point in that I wanted to touch on, but I don't quite remember what it is off the top of my head. But also a couple other things that you touched on, Ari. It's cool to know that, oh, yeah, I know exactly what it was. This is an infinite game. And in that, this, if we play our cards right, the things that we're doing today will live long after us. And I will say, like, investing in this day and age where everyone's in a rush, everyone's only so focused on what's going on right now. If you're not in growth, you're done for. You're an idiot. You're stupid. Whatever. If you're not in crypto, if you're not in Bitcoin, you're dumb. I will say, having a multi-generational approach in approaching your investment with that long of a timeline that spans, ultimately will span centuries. I think it allows you to slow down a little bit and not get so fixated on what's going on right now, because over that long, long, long period of time, even if you just get decent returns, 8%, 7%, 9% over that long, 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 long period of time, you're still going to do just fine. Like, you don't have to do anything super exceptional to become wealthy over time. It just takes that time. And so I do think that I do think when you zoom out and extend your time horizon beyond just your lifetime, it does enable you to be a bit more patient, and it does enable you to slow things down a little bit, because it's not just about you. The game that you're playing today and the decisions you're making today are actually for people who probably are not even born yet. And I think it's easy to forget about too when you're in the moment, when there is so much noise out there. So that's something I always try and bring myself back to as well. And I was talking to Russ about this recently, actually. It's this, shout out Russ, because I know he's listening too. Probably the podcast version is he's mowing his lawn, but we were talking about the idea of patient capital, and there's been a few people that I've been listening to lately and reading lately that follow that idea of just being very patient and having that multi lifetime time horizon. And it really resonates with me. And I think that gives me the, how do I say it? To me, it gives me the green light to just continue doing things how I'm doing them, because there is a lot of pressure to change your strategy to match what's working today. But it does kind of recenter you and makes you realize it's not just about what's working today. It's about what will work over those multiple lifetimes. And sometimes those things are the things that are not likely to change, or are a bit more resilient to change. The things that are working today that will still be working 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And so that's really reinforced how I think about investing, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely does. And to Fast Eddie saying, my useless opinion in the comments, we'll pull that one up as well. The reality is, Eddie, it's not such a useless opinion. It's a very valid opinion that passing down knowledge is worth much more than just wealth. And to Ryan's point, it is really about teaching. It's about, this, I think at the end of the day, the best possible thing is to hand down and also teach. I like Warren Buffett's approach where, Obviously, we all know his financial position, but I think each child, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, only got $1 million. And or they maybe got more equity in something else. I don't, but I
So
thought it was
generally, like his approach, I'm sorry to cut you off, but his approach was he's going to leave them enough that they can do anything, but not so much that they don't have to do anything. If that makes
right,
sense.
right, yeah. Where did I read? I don't know if I read that or if I just made that up right now. Whatever it is, yeah. To your, let's just say, call it $1 million out of all the billions that he has. I think that approach is spot on, and I plan to do the same thing. Make it just enough so they can have something, but not so much that their life is just a walk in the park. I don't believe that, handing down money because you have the generational wealth means that's the ticket to freedom. Don't do anything in life. I met someone the other day who's a colleague on Wall Street, and he comes from money, but he works his tail off as well. He
Mhm.
has his own goal of taking his family's capital and making more out of that. And so I think that, that should just be the standard. I don't think anybody, I will say this outright, like shame on anybody who just gets the money and does absolutely nothing. That's not, to me, a life worth living. You've contributed nothing. And you've just kind of selfishly existed through this thing. I think to really live is to experience failures and pains and try your best to continue to grow. Now, we're all starting out in different positions. Some of us do start off, maybe born into multi-million dollar families. That wasn't my case. But some of us out there, that was the case. I think you have an obligation to do something equally as I do. And I think that both of us need to strive to continue to build upon what we were given and,
Yeah.
and deposit into society two very different things, but nonetheless two things. And it's not, it's not about playing for yourself at the end of this journey. And there's just so much joy in not playing for yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, it's cool to know too. I will say, especially living in the United States, it's cool to know that you can be anyone and you can start planting those seeds of wealth for the future generation today, especially in this day and age as an investor. No matter how much income you have, no matter your financial situation, even if you just start with $1 per week or $1 per month, Ari would say that's not enough. You need to do more. And ultimately he's right. You should you should definitely work up to doing more. But the
I'm not the
point
only
is
crazy one here. Let me just throw that out there. Yeah, I know Joey's
no.
probably sitting out there. Like I think she's more intense than I am.
She might be, and with that said, we do need to have Joy on. It would be a fun conversation. Um,
Talk
but
about really ramping up the the energy levels here.
yeah, so but I think that's the cool thing. Like anyone listening right here, right now, can start planting those seeds today. And I think for a lot of us, that is why we're doing it. I think I'd be surprised if not, all of us listening right now, or at least most of us. I'd be surprised if most of us didn't think with a multi-generational lens. I'd be highly surprised if there were a lot of people listening or watching right now that in building this wealth, they just think it's going to end with them.
Well, I mean, we could throw it out there and just say like, hey, if that is your stance, again, I'm not here to say that it's wrong. It's just my personal opinion that I think everybody should, be on the opposite end of that spectrum. But I'd be super curious because I am that open to really learn about this other opinion, this other way. So if that is you out there, planning to die with zero, let us know why. Like, let us know the rationale behind it and how you really feel about it. Literally, it should change my mind, because that's,
Cause YOLO, cause
yeah,
YOLO, Ari.
because I'm looking to start playing for myself. No, look, I'm very curious for people who want to die with zero, and I keep that much of an open mind to say maybe there's something I missed. Maybe there is.
Yeah, well, it's not like obviously there. I don't want to. This may be a cop out, but there is not really a right or a wrong thing here. Like what you choose to do with your money is your decision. And just because I might do something differently doesn't make me more right or more wrong. So it's totally preferential. But yeah, it is interesting to know the reasoning on the other side there. Mr. Casey said, "I'm not dying with zero," with a lot of zeros there. Yeah.
multi-millions, billions. Right. Do you know who Robert Herjavec is?
Uh, Hershevik. He was the center fielder for the Phillies back in like the late '90s, right?
What?
I just made that up.
Oh, I was like, maybe, maybe there was another Robert Herjavec. No, so if you would have thrown that name out to me, by the way, I wouldn't have known either. But I am super, super interested at this. So much so I emailed his team. I'm trying to meet him. He is one of the sharks on Shark Tank.
Oh,
But the reason why I'm so keen on just learning more about him is actually his family's story. I am obsessed with stories, and good stories, inspirational stories. And so his family, they came from a communist country, moved to North America, and I was listening to a lot of stories about his father and how hard his father worked. And then, when he was kind of slacking off, he describes in one of these stories, he was about to drop out of college. He was studying to become a lawyer, lawyer. And he just failed a math course, and it just trajectory wise, like he wasn't doing so hot, and he wanted to drop out. And so he came home, and his dad just came home from working 2 shifts in a factory. Mind you, the father didn't speak a lick of English, and so anyways, the dad comes home. Robert's sitting on the couch, and the dad walks in, and I'm not going to do the accent, so you got to go watch this story on YouTube. But
do the accent, man.
no,
Do the
I can't
accent.
even muster up the tongue
Oh,
to like move in that position. I would if I could. Like I know, but the dad basically says, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "Well, I'm going to drop out of school." And then he says his dad came like this close up to his face, and his father says to him, "I love you, but if you don't get back to school, I will kill you." And I think about these stories, and Robert, obviously now a shark on Shark Tank. He sold his first business for $600,000, his next business for 36 million, I think. And then now he's got, hundreds of millions in his third business, and he's become a billionaire. I'm pretty sure. Or maybe not, hundreds of millions, whatever it is. At that point, it doesn't even matter, but very, very wealthy individual. And one of the interviews I was watching from him today, he goes, "I just don't like people who have excuses." And I love that. I agree. I don't like hearing excuses. I don't like people who have excuses. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because since I knew of him, right? I could see a picture of him, be like, oh, I know he's from Shark Tank. I never really looked into his story. Mark Cuban was always the guy. Mark Cuban. I know his story, everything. But to go back to Robert's story, man, and investing like a billionaire and taking the risk and playing this game of life, man, it is just so inspiring. And Robert's life, I took a lot of notes on it. Even I'm like sitting here with with notes, and I think everybody ought to find somebody that's hardcore, and hardcore successful. And if you really, really want to be successful, whether it's in investing or in life, go find somebody who is ultra successful, and start to ask yourself, hey, if I was next to them, and what would they be telling me to do right now? Chances are they wouldn't be telling you to, sleep in because, you got all the time in the morning. And chances are they're going to operate on a different frequency. And I think if we all did that, I just look at because I'm even been asking myself this past week, every day I go to the dog park and I have a podcast that I'm listening to, or, some speaker, I'm listening to stories, usually of people, ultra successful, wealthy people tell their stories. And it just helps me understand that the wealthy live a different way. They think a different way. They're going to go about this whole thing a different way. And so if I want to achieve what they have achieved, or at least a sliver of what they achieved, it means that I cannot play average. And I think a lot of us are playing average. Even right, this is controversial. Even right here, I don't know how many people are in that chat, but I'm going to say two things. One, I will bet on myself any day that none of you will outwork me, even Ryan. Maybe he will, but I'm going to bet that he won't, right? And I feel like, Ryan, you might say the same about me. Like, the mentality is there, right? And the second thing that I think about is, like, most of us in this chat and this, right, we're probably fooling ourselves. And so my question is, who's fooling themselves, you know? And yeah, man, I'm just entering 2026 like this.
I will say that's probably true in terms of you outworking everyone, but I will also say on my end, I don't really care. I don't really care to outwork you. That's not something I think about. I compare myself to how I was yesterday and how I was this time last year, and I'm farther ahead than that person. And I'm doing things more and doing things better than that person was. And whoever that person was doing things better than that same person a year before them. And that's really the only measurement that I care about.
Not that,
So
let me just say, not that it's outwork, like, I'm not saying like I'm measuring how much you're working and I'm trying to outwork you. I'm just saying by way, like, the work ethic on an objective level, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if this makes sense, I don't know if I'm saying this the right way. Like, I don't ever wake up and say, like, okay, everybody else is like over here, so I'm going to do this much work. No, I am naturally just doing this work. And it's only in certain moments when I realize people say, like, wow, like, how the hell did you do that? I'm like, how the heck did I do it? How didn't I do it? You know, like, again, it's not that you're constantly thinking of other people. The wealthy thing, like Robert was even talking about this, is you're thinking about yourself and about bettering yourself, but you're so intense with yourself to get yourself to where you want to go that you're naturally you just are outworking people. Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. And I also think in terms of people living average, I also think that's a relative metric too. People may be living average compared to you, but they could probably look at other people around them and say that those other people are living average compared to them. So,
To them.
I don't know what the point is in making that comparison. I don't know what good that brings.
To others.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's any good. Like, what I'm trying to get at is, like, if you put yourself through an objective lens. I don't think I'm explaining this the correct way, but in my head, it totally makes sense, right? There's not a single day that goes by that I'm waking up and saying, like, okay, I'm going to use you, Ryan. Ryan is doing 5 videos a week, or I don't know how many videos you put out a week, but X amount of videos per week. So I have to do this because I'm going to outwork him, right? No, the ideology behind it is, here's my goal. So I'm going to go so hard at this goal.
I
But
see what you're
while you're
saying.
going so hard at it, people are at some point coming up to you and asking you that, like, how did you do it? Like, what the heck is going on? Like, how are you doing it? You know? And it naturally, because you're so hungry for it, you're just outworking people around you.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying basically in terms of quote unquote being average, you're saying that probably a lot of people are not doing as much as they could be doing to reach whatever goal that they have. There's more in the tank that could be given.
Yes.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, probably so.
Someone else out there is outworking me in a very different, probably like baking and cooking or like other things, right? Like, someone else is easily outworking, but I'm so hungry for a certain goal, and I'm just go like move, like towards my goal, that it's like, wow, like, and again, I could say that about like a Robert, right? Like, he is obviously done the work and just an animal, right? And then just getting to where he needs to go to hit his goals. But it's just funny because, like, when you start to play in different circles, Robert was talking about, like, again, not that he's not necessarily comparing himself all the time, but you're playing in these circles. So Robert's circle is Mark Cuban. And so he, like, Robert talks about this moment where he's talking to Mark Cuban. This was off camera, and they were talking about their yachts, and I guess Robert bought a boat and Mark had a boat, and so Robert was like, the goal is to get a bigger boat than yours, and then Mark Cuban goes, which one? and so Robert goes, like, in that moment, I just had such a gut check that Mark's got 3 boats.
That's such a dumb game to play, though. That
No,
if that's how you,
not that they're like, what I'm getting at, man, is, dude, this is like a natural life. If you think about it, though, like, they're having the banter that we're having, just on a different scale. You know what I'm saying?
I would never care about how many yachts Mark has. Like, who cares if you're doing things just because you're trying to one up someone else? That's stupid. That's a dumb way. That's a dumb reason to do something.
I gotta
In my
send you this
opinion.
video.
Yeah.
No, dude, it's the same. It's the mindset behind it. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well,
Like,
they have so much money at that point that's now what they have to do to I don't know, stay competitive or keep that hunger going, because they've already made it in this other direction. Maybe it's getting boring, so you need to one up the other guy who's only got 3 Rolexes when you have 5 or 6.
I think there's a certain point. I don't know what that is, because I'm definitely not there.
No, I'm not either.
But, dude, at, like, what do you think that point is? Like, a 20 million, 50 million? Like, when does it just become like dumb money? You like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like, it's like,
yeah, I don't know.
It's all this after a certain point, it's all the same.
Yeah. And that's a good question.
I would imagine it's when you can buy a yacht. I feel like, and I'm not talking about a little boat, probably like a jet and a yacht. Like, there's just some point that it's like there's no return to normalcy.
Probably the point where you can buy a yacht, probably the point where you're flying private for every instance, you're staying in crazy hotels, like you need to do things a bit more privately, so
like,
I don't know,
security detail type.
Yeah, but I don't know if, in thinking about that, there's also billionaires out there, and you wouldn't even know they were billionaires. So I don't think that's a money thing. I think that's more of like a fame and notoriety thing, because there are tons of quiet millionaires and quiet billionaires. But yeah, I don't know. I would imagine the dollar amount. Yeah, it's probably 8 figures and above for sure. Because at that point, like, even if you made 10%,
even just $1 billion, man. Really think about that.
I can't even fathom it. I mean,
like, dude, I think about the $1 million mark, right? And so my mind obviously is just like, okay, you hit the $1 million, you get 10% of $1 million a year. Like, at that point, I can really, like, I'm just going to be traveling, and that's at $1 million.
Yeah.
These guys are playing with billions, like,
yeah. I mean, I even think about that too. Like, even just a cool $1 million, which, as they say, is not what it used to be. But still, when you think about the fact that $1 million can get you, without having to lift a finger, 10 just on a total return basis, if you're doing 10%, an extra $100,000 just in that first year, without having to do anything. I mean, that's still very incredible. I don't care about inflation. Like, that's still an incredible amount of money for not having to do anything for it.
Well, man, that's why I'm so like zesty for this. Like, I've given thought, man. I'm like, yeah, if I move to Thailand, for a year, I can cut that right in half. The appeal to me to hit this number so quickly, by the way, is literally just to hit that freedom. Because, again, like, you just run. I love running all the numbers, because that's what's going to give the freedom at the end of the day. Everybody's got a different number in mind.
At what point do you just, like, stop contributing, or do you think there ever is a point? Because it's interesting, because when you first start out, the contributions, like, you can't grow if you're not contributing. The contributions are everything. But then as the portfolio gets larger and larger, the contributions don't have as much, as much juice to them. So, like, at what point do you look at the growth of your portfolio and just think, the extra 1,000, the extra couple thousand I'm putting in, you're doing more than this, but, like, per month, you put in a couple thousand in per month. That's not really moving the needle. Should I just stop? Should I just save that money and deploy it elsewhere? Is there a point where you stop contributing?
Yeah, I goal dependent. Like
Yeah.
if some like for example, but the other thing is this, man. My goal is not to be like I don't have like a I have a freedom goal. It's not like a monetary like I'm rich goal, like
Yeah.
so
Same
because I have
here.
a freedom goal, like my ultimate goal is to build a real estate portfolio because I like real estate. I really love real estate. I love what I did in Manhattan, and like that's my like goal and doing what I'm doing now, so we always go back to this, but like when you're doing the things that you love, it's not about the money. And so people who are doing this only for the money, I think it's a very miserable, finish line feeling because you just, well, it doesn't end really. It just keeps going. But when you have a freedom number, because I'm like, okay, add $1 million, and you could literally live off of that, if you do it right. And then did you inflate your life at all? There's a lot of, aspects that go into it, but I don't see myself inflating my life. Some people, Joy actually made fun of me, like the other week, right? Cause she was like, how many shirts do you own? But here's the reality, it's like, I'm so simple that I proudly have like 3 black shirts, 3 white shirts, like maybe a handful of pants and some shorts, and like that's the wardrobe, like and I know, Ryan, you're similar, but it doesn't matter how much money I have, I will keep my wardrobe like pretty simple. The one thing that I do and like live pretty dangerously is travel, man. Like that's my thing. But other than that, like I again, it's so goal dependent because I don't require that much to live and to
Just
be happy.
travel in Greek loafers.
Yeah. That's it. I bought my Greek loafers, man. I'm going back to Greece to buy the other colors.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. No,
best freaking loafers I've ever bought.
and like, I totally resonate with that. I like clothes. I like style. That's always something I've been interested in. But in being interested in that, you also learn that it's 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 not about having like the name brand things. It's not about having like Gucci this or Louis Vuitton that everywhere, decked out in designer. It's really more about just simple, understated things that fit you, like actually fit you well, and also are like timeless. What the things that are cool today, or the things that are cool like back in the 60s and 70s, are still the things that are cool today, or even in the 50s, like James Dean and just a plain white t-shirt, or
James
even
Dean,
Steve
man.
or even Steve McQueen in the 60s and 70s, like same thing, just the king of cool. Like those things are timeless. And that's kind of the cool thing about it. The more that you get into that, you learn that you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to like look cool or look stylish. And also part of the reason that's not such a big ordeal to people like us, I think, is because we find fulfillment elsewhere. There's other fulfillment besides just the brand on your t-shirt. And the only reason that people wear things like that or spend money on things like that is because they think it sends a certain message about them and their status. But it's typically, like, in reality, the opposite of what they're trying to present.
Well, speaking about status and brand, I just do want to throw out, Ryan, your sweatshirt says Blossom. So this podcast was entirely brought to you by Blossom. And if you're not on Blossom already, you have to get on there.
Have
Ryan's
to.
entire portfolio is transparently shown on Blossom, if you can believe it.
All my
Mine
crypto
is as
coins are
well.
there. All my cryptos.
It's XRP coins.
Yeah.
No, but if you're not on Blossom, I'm highly, highly recommending everybody get on Blossom for the sake of finding yourself in a community that keeps you afloat, keeps you inspired, keeps you learning and on your feet, I think, to get to your next level. So, man, we're past the hour at this point. I don't know if there's any last minute questions to throw in the chat, or
I
Ryan,
do
you have any
have one.
last minute thoughts. He's
Yeah,
gone.
I've got a last question here from Chris. Chris wants to know, this is a quick one. Which stock out of the whole stock market would you love a 50% overreaction correction so you can start a
Alphabet.
position in it? Okay, nice. Didn't even
Yeah,
need to
I'm
think.
gonna
And I want to
right
throw it
off
to you
the bat.
guys. I want to throw it to you guys in the chat. I want to hear your answers to this one as well. If there was any stock out there that you'd want to see like a 50% correction, total overreaction, totally unnecessary drop, so you can start a discounted position in it, which stock would that be? Ari says, without even thinking, no hesitation, Alphabet. For me over here, it's going to be Rollins. If we're
I was gonna
talking new
bet clear secure,
positions,
man.
if we're talking new positions that I don't already own, it'd be Rollins for sure. Otherwise, it would probably be Visa. Clear actually did pretty good for me on yesterday, man. They were up like 12%, 13% just yesterday. So that one
Right.
was flying.
Real quick, while everyone's answering this question, did it surprise you when PPC Ian added tech stocks to his portfolio?
No, no, I not really because I think Ian has kind of gone through, and I think this is really like the evolution of a dividend investor. Ian has totally gone through that where I think when he first started out, Thug Life, OG dividend investing, I think it was strictly like the Campbell's Soup, the Procter and Gamble's, Altria Groups, stuff like that. It's those classic dividend growth stocks, and those are classic dividend stocks, I should say, and those certainly have their place. But I think as he's gotten deeper in this, he's evolved that to more of a balance between those classics dividend stocks and also more growthy dividend growth stocks. I know he also has Alphabet. That I think that was like one of his first forays into these tech ones, and now he has Meta as well. It doesn't really surprise me because that just seems like kind of the evolution of this thing. And I think when you first start out as a dividend investor, you get pretty attached to only going for stocks with certain yields. Um, and you're looking at the dividend as just as a numerical thing. But I think the deeper that you get into this and the more experience you have looking at businesses, the presence of a dividend is really the only thing that matters. I'm speaking for myself, but I think Ian probably feels a similar way. The presence of a dividend is really what matters, and it's more of a philosophical thing behind it. It's nice to get the cash flow, but there's also philosophical reasons why you might want to see a company pay a dividend, why you might want to participate in a share of their profits in that way. And so I think he's gone through that evolution.
I think you're gonna love the masters of the market chat I did with him, man.
I'm
I think
so
you,
excited.
you specifically will. I really, really like it, and Ian crushed it, man. We talked about just being, a traditional dividend investor and what it's turned into these days. Ian had a lot
Oh,
to say about it, and I
can of
love Ian,
worms,
man.
man.
He's just a standout guy. But he was just a very honest, um, honest investor about what's going on these days, and like how people should be looking at everything, and whether or not dividend investing, the traditional means of dividend investing, is dead. That was a part of our conversation too, because if there was anybody to ask that question to, it was Ian. And Ian's been through, literally everything under the sun with dividend stocks. And so his answer to that very question, I think, will shock you the most.
You said that's coming out next week.
Yeah. So Joey's chat is coming out tomorrow, and then
Okay.
Ian's next week.
Okay.
Equally fire on different levels. Totally
Okay.
different
Well,
conversations. Yeah.
I'll definitely tune into both of those. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I want to get to the live chat and go through everyone's picks before we wrap it up. But I would not be number one. I wouldn't be investing in dividend stocks if it wasn't for Ian. The same goes for Russ as well. Those two guys really like put me on this path. But number two, I also probably would not be creating content. I would not be here talking to you guys today in URI if it wasn't for him and the inspiration that I got from him. So I feel like I owe a lot to that guy.
He's an amazing soul, really. And while we're just here before we wrap up with all the tickers, we should have Joey on next week, man.
I was just going to say that. Joey, if you're still here, are you down? Let us know in the chat. Next week we can make it happen for sure. That'd be awesome.
And now
We'll wait
we'll
for
go ahead and run through them.
yeah, we'll see what she says. But we got Joey, who said he'd pick up some Microsoft. McVeigh, NEE's Next Era Energy. Good pick. Chris knows me too well. He knew I was going to say Rollins. I know, man. That's my great white whale.
And I have you saying Rollins in my dreams. You know, there are just certain stocks because of you, Ryan. I walk around this world and I'm like, oh, that's in Ryan's portfolio. You know,
Well, that's good,
Clear
man. And
Secure is one of them. Every time I'm in an airport, I go Ryan Williams.
well, honestly, that's fun for me. It's fun for me to find like what I think are these hidden gems that no one else is really talking about. And clearly now, like I get the association from those things. So that makes me feel good. And I'm glad. Trevon said he's going to pick up some Broadcom or would pick up Broadcom. Zach is going with good old Procter and Gamble. Okay, nice. Yeah, I mean, if that one dropped 50%, you'd be looking at like probably a 4.5% dividend yield. That'd be nice. Kenneth's also going with Microsoft. Apizu's actually going with Altria. Interesting pick. That one could definitely afford to, like, I don't know, see a 50% drop in price. But
Ian talks about this one in the chat.
That one's still a bit frothy. It has since come down a bit from the mid 60s that it was at, but we'll see. Chris would go with TSM. Nice pick. Gaunt would go with Costco. That's a great pick as well. That would definitely be on my radar too. Fast A would go with Berkshire, the A shares, not the B shares. Don't get it mistaken. Nice. Let's see what else we got. That's pretty much, well, Jeff here didn't catch the question. So Chris asked something like, if you had to pick any stock
that took a 50% nosedive.
Yeah, 50% drop, total overreaction, so you could start a position in it, what would it be?
Oh, we got a John Deere coming in.
Great company. Yeah, from Joey. Also more Deere. Yeah. We'll wait for Jeff's response. I don't know if Joey's in here anymore.
She may have left.
She probably went to the gym.
Yeah, the gym or some other podcast. No, she's always busy, man. She's always on the move. But I think she'd be a fun guest to have on here.
Yeah.
You know, and while we're there, you know, let us know what guests you'd like to actually see on Master. Why do I always do that, man? What guests you'd like to see on the deep end? It's so natural when it comes off the cuff like that. But
yeah, let us know. Let us know in the chat. I think Ian would be fun, but he's kind of a tough one to grab.
Ian's the hardest guy I feel like to get on. He's so busy. Dave Ramsey would be great, but we'd have a few. I don't know. I don't really agree with a lot of Dave Ramsey's approaches to personal finance, but you know, to each their own.
Joey said Professor G. I'm actually going to be chatting with him next week. We're going to do a video together that should be actually going out a week from today. So I can ask him if he'd be down to hop on. I'm sure he would.
He'd be good to have on. He'd be fun.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, Trevon says PPC Ian. Okay. Yeah, we'll plan for Joey next week. Hopefully she's around. We can do it either Saturday or Sunday. We'll try and shoot for another live stream, but I think that'd be good. So Epic. Okay. Well, Ari, man, why don't you take us into the end zone?
We'll the honors. It has been one heck of an episode here at an hour and 23 minutes and counting. And I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who has tuned in to join us live on the deep end. Know that we got another episode that will be going live next week, either Saturday or Sunday. So just keep your eyes and ears open. It's going to be a heck of a week, I think, coming up. So stay tuned with what's going on in Ryan's portfolio and mine on Blossom. Join us there and send us some preliminary questions for next week. If you have questions and you want those questions answered, DM those questions to us either individually or just comment down below. It's been an honor and a true privilege to be here with everybody. Until next week, Ryan and I will catch you all in the next episode of The Deep End.